This conference will now be recorded.
Fine guys, as I said that as a SQL developer, if you joined in any organization, we are going to do the work on completely related to the data concepts, guys. Now we learn from the scratch, from the bottom of the neck, from the what is meant by data, and then what are the different types of softwares we are having to store the data, guys. Now let me keep like this. Let me remove this, guys. In today's class, completely introduction to SQL Server, guys. Let me keep like this. Introduction to SQL Server. As a SQL developer, on what we are going to do the work, guys? We are going to do the work completely related to the data. First, we know that what is meant by data, guys. First, let me keep like this. What is the definition of data? What is the definition of data means? Data is nothing but, try to understand, guys. Data is nothing but a fact. Data is nothing but a fact or information. Fact or information which is collected together and stored in a separate place and stored in a separate place for future analysis or for reporting purpose, guys. Please be unmute, guys. For future analysis or for reporting purpose. Guys. This is the definition of data. What is meant by data, guys? Data is nothing but fact or information which is collected together and stored in a separate place for future analysis or for reporting purpose, guys. Now try to understand, guys. I will explain this definition, what is meant by data. I said that data is nothing but a fact or an information which is collected together. That means in the real world, guys, we are having the data at different locations. Sometimes we may have the data in the Excel files. Sometimes we may have the data in the CSV files. Sometimes we may have the data in the Google Sheets like this, guys. That means there may be a chance of having the data in the different locations. What we need to do means we need to collect the data together. We need to collect this 3 different data from Excel, Google, and CSV files. We need to collect this data and keep it in a separate place, guys. We need to collect this data into a one place and then stored in a separate place, guys. Stored in a separate place. What is the purpose of storing the data? Collecting the data and storing the data in a separate place means for future analysis or for reporting purpose, guys. For future analysis or for reporting purpose. Now, what is meant by this future analysis or means reporting purpose means? Try to understand, guys. Suppose I started one business. Suppose myself started one business. It is running for past 3 years, guys. It is running for last 3 years. Now, after 3 years, I want to understand, guys, on this business in the past 3 years, what is the amount I'm spending on the business? What is the amount I'm spending on the business? And then what are the profits I'm getting? And then what is the sales we made? And then what are the customers? How many customers are visiting to the stores or to the organizations? Like this, customer related data. Like this, if I want to understand what is the amount I spend on the business on this business in the last 3 years, what are the profits I'm getting? And then what is the sales we made? Like this, if you understand the data means we need to store the data in a separate place, guys. If you are having the data in a separate place, we can analyze the data, what is happening in the 3 years. We can analyze the data, what is happening in the 3 years, or if you want to create any reports means we can create some of the reports, guys. We can create some of the reports like this. That is the reason why I am keeping the definition like this, guys. What is meant by data? Data is nothing but a fact or information which is collected together and stored in a separate place. What is the need of storing the data in a separate place means? For future analysis or for reporting purpose, guys. Future analysis or for reporting purpose. Now we know that what is meant by data, guys. Now, what are the different types of data we are having? In which format the data is having in the real world? Let me keep the examples, guys. Different formats of data. Sometimes there may be a chance of having the data in the text format, guys. Sometimes the data will be in the text format, and sometimes the data will be in the number format. The data will be in the number format. Sometimes the data will be in the audio format. Sometimes the data will be in the video format, and sometimes the data may be in the form of image format, guys. Image format. Like this, we may have the data in the different formats. Basically, we may have the data in the text or number format. There may be a chance of sometimes having the data in the audio, video, and image format also, guys. These are some of the examples for data. What is meant by data means? These are some of the examples, guys. Now, I said that, guys, collecting the data together. Data is meant by fact or information. Collecting the data together and stored in a separate place, guys. Try to understand. Stored in a separate place. Where we need to store this data? I'm telling that we need to collect the data and then stored in a separate place. Where we need to store this data? In which place we need to store the data means? In older days, guys. Try to understand. In older days, where the business organizers are storing their data means, before older days, guys, in the ancient days, if you are not having the systems like this, laptops, softwares like this, where the business organizers are storing their data means, they are storing their data in the record books, guys. In older days, where the business organizers are storing their data means, they are storing their data in the record books, guys. They are storing their data in the record books. Suppose in older days, myself, I started one business, guys. I started one business, and then I'm having 3 years data. 3 years data I'm having, guys. Now, in older days, how they keep the data in the record books means, they will keep one record book for 1 year, guys. Suppose I'm having the data from, I started the business from 2010. For 2010 data, I will keep one record book. For 2011 data, I will keep one more record book. This record book is for 2011 data. And then for third year data, I'm keeping another one more record book called 2012. Like this, I'm keeping separate record books for each year, guys. For 2010 related data, I'm keeping one record book. For 2011 data, I'm keeping one more record book. And for 2012 data, I'm keeping one more record books, guys. Like this, for each year, they maintain one record book to store their data, guys. That means, try to understand, guys. In older days, we are going to store the data in the record books. Try to understand, guys. If you store the data like this in the record books, what happens? Guys? For 2010, I'm having one record book. For 2011 data, I'm having one more record book. For 2012 data, I'm having one more record book. If you keep the data in the record books, what happens means, this data is not going to be permanently stored, guys. If you store the data in the record books like this, we may have the chance of data maximum of 3 to 4 years, guys. We can understand the data in the record books. We can understand the data in these record books maximum of 3 to 4 years. Guys. After 3 to 4 years, the data in these record books are going to be washed up. Guys. It is not possible to understand what type of data we are having in the record books. So, in older days, when we are storing the data in the record books, the data can be visible, or we can understand the data for only 3 to 4 years. After 3 to 4 years, if you want to understand the data, what kind of data we are having in this record books, it is not possible. Why? Because the data is not in the proper format. It is not understandable. It is going to be washed up, guys. So when we store the data in the record books like this, what is the problem we are having, guys? It is not possible to store the data for longer periods. Let me keep like this, guys. When we store the data in the record books, what is the problem we are having means, it is not possible to store the data for longer periods, guys. That means, if you want to store the data for longer periods like 10 years or 20 years, means this record books doesn't support, guys. We can save the data in the record books, we can store the data, but we can store it for 3 to 4 years. 4 years. But our requirement here is I want to store the data for 10 to 20 years. If you want to store the data for 10 to 20 years, this record books is not supportable. It is not suitable to store the 10 years data or 20 years data, guys. That is the thing I am keeping here. It is not possible to store the data for longer periods. So to overcome this problem, to store the data for longer periods, in the later days, where the business organizers are storing their data, guys. In the later days, let me keep like this. In the later days, let me keep like this. Later days, where the business organizers are storing their data means they are storing their data in the flat files, guys. Flat files. What are the different types of flat files we are having, guys? Flat files like we're having different types of flat files like one is Excel, second one is CSV files, Google Sheets, like this. To store the data for longer periods, where in the later days, where the business organizers are storing their data means they are storing their data in the Excel, CSV and Google Sheets, guys. If they store their data in the business data in the Excel sheets, they can store it for longer periods, guys. The data can be stored for longer periods. After 10 years also, after 10 years or 20 years also, if you want to see the data, means we can see the data properly in the Excel sheets, Google Sheets or CSV files, guys, or CSV files. So to overcome this problem in the record books, it is not possible to store the data for longer periods. To overcome this problem, we are moving for the latter days. We are using flat files like Excel and CSV files. In this flat files and CSV files also, we are having one problem, guys. What is the problem means? Suppose, try to understand, guys. I'm having one big organization. Like Amazon. I'm having one big organization, guys, like Amazon, Flipkart, and then eBay. Like this, these are the big e-marketing businesses, guys. These are all called as e-marketing businesses. See, try to understand, guys. For the Amazon website, per one day, there may be a chance of visiting the lakhs of customers, guys. When per day only, if the 1 lakh customers are visiting, then for 1 month, how many customers are visiting, guys? There may be a chance of having the more than 30 lakhs of customers. Are buying the products from the Amazon. So try to understand, guys. Now my requirement here is I want to store the millions of records, guys. Lakhs of records or millions of records. I want to store the lakhs of records or millions of records, guys. To store the millions of records like this, Amazon, Flipkart or eBay, is this Excel files is supported or not? Is this Excel files, CSV and Google Sheets will support means? No, guys, this doesn't support. In the Excel, we can store the data for longer periods, but this flat files doesn't possible to store the data, huge volumes of data like millions of records, guys, How many records the Excel sheets can handle, guys? It can handle the hundreds of records. Or thousands of records, guys. Hundreds or thousands of records the Excel, CSV and Google Sheets can handle. But our requirement here is to store the big organizations data like Amazon. This Excel sheets will helpful, guys? No. This Excel files, CSV files, Google Sheets doesn't support. Why? Because in the Excel sheets, we can store the hundreds of records or thousands of records, but it is not possible to store them millions of records, guys. So what is the problem we are having in this flat files, guys? Flat files doesn't support for huge volumes of data. Let me keep like this, guys. In the flat files, it is not possible to store the huge volumes of data, guys. Huge volumes of data. That means if you want to store the millions of records in that Excel files and CSV files means it doesn't support. It will handles only hundreds of records or thousands of records, guys, or thousands of records. This is the problem we are having in the flat files. Guys. Now to overcome these two problems, to store the data for longer periods, and to store the huge volumes of data, nowadays, what the business organizers are using, which softwares the business organizers are using to store the data for longer periods and to store the huge volumes of data like millions of records means, let me keep like this, guys. Nowadays, the business organizers are using, the softwares called database software systems, guys. Nowadays, the business organizers, where their data is storing means, they are storing their data in the database softwares, guys. Database software systems. Database software systems, guys. They are storing their data in the database software systems nowadays. In database software systems, we can store the data for longer periods, and also we can store the huge volumes of data like millions of records, guys. Now we come to know that, guys, nowadays, what is the business organizers are using? Which softwares? They are using the database softwares to store their data for longer periods. Guys. Now, try to understand, guys, what are the different types of database softwares we are having? Nowadays to store the huge volumes of records? Guys. Let me keep like this. We know that nowadays we are going to store the data in the database software systems. Guys. And then under this database software systems, what are the different types of database software systems we are having? Let me keep like this, guys. Types of database software systems. Database software systems. Database software systems, guys. Database software systems we are having nowadays. There are two types of database software systems, guys. First one is Dbms. Second one is Rdbms, guys. Second one is Rdbms. Now, what is meant by this Dbms and what is meant by this Rdbms, guys? We'll understand now. Try to understand what is meant by this Dbms and what is meant by the Rdbms means. First, let me go with the Dbms, guys. I will explain you what is the difference between Dbms and Rdbms. First, let me go with the Dbms software. Try to understand, guys. In Dbms, let me keep here what is the Dbms stands for, guys. Dbms stands for database management system. Guys. Database management systems. Dbms stands for database management systems. Now, what is the definition for this? Dbms means Dbms is a software. Which is used to store the data. And allows the users to define create, maintain and control the access to the databases and controls the access to the databases, This is the definition of the Dbms, guys. Try to understand what is the definition of the Dbms. Dbms is a software which is used to store the data, guys. The main purpose of this Dbms software is used to store the data. And allows the users to define. What is meant by this define means, guys? To define, create, maintain and control the access means Suppose I'm having one table, guys. Suppose I'm having one table called employees table. Suppose I'm having one table called employees table, guys. In this employees table, suppose I'm having some data. I'm having 10 records, guys. I'm having 10 employee details. This is the definition, guys. Define or creating. Define or creating means creating the tables. Creating the tables. I'm creating one table, guys, EMP table. And then after creating the table, what is meant by this maintain, guys? How many records we are having in this table? We are having 10 records in this table. We can maintain the data, guys. Maintenance means we can do some operations on the data we are having in this table. Suppose if you want to add one more record into the table, suppose if you want to add one more record into the table, we can add the records. If you want to delete one record, in the table, we can delete the record. If you want to update any record, guys, if you want to change the existing data, in the tables, we can perform the updation operation also, guys. That is called as maintain. Maintenance is nothing but adding the data, removing the data, and updating the data in the tables, guys. And then after, see here what is meant by this control the access to the databases. That means this is the table I am having, guys, EMP table. This is the EMP table. Now I am the person who created this table. Suppose another person in the organization, want to interact with the same table means, EMP table means, it is not possible, guys. This person is not able to interact with the EMP table. If this person want to interact with this EMP table means, he need to get the permissions, guys. Then only this person, second person or second employee can be able to interact with the data, guys. By default, it is not possible to interact with the data in the tables, guys. If the employee want to interact with the data means, he need to get the permissions from the other persons. And then getting the permissions only, it is possible to interact with this data, guys. That is the thing I am keeping here. Control the access to the databases. Guys. This is the definition of this Dbms. We know that Dbms is used to store the data and to create the tables, maintain the data in the tables, and controls the access to the databases. And then what is meant by this Rdbms, guys? Rdbms. Try to understand what is the Rdbms stands for, guys. Rdbms stands for relational database management system. Relational database management system, guys. Relational database management systems. Rdbms stands for relational database management systems. Guys. Now what is the definition of this? Guys? Try to understand the same definition, guys. Whatever the definition we are having for the Dbms, the same definition for the Rdbms also. The same definition. Let me keep like this, guys. Rdbms is a software. Rdbms is a software which is used to store the data. And allows the users to define, create, and then maintain and control the access to the databases, and controls the access to the databases, guys. Let me keep like this. And controls the access to the databases. Guys. Control the access to the databases. Try to understand here. Whatever the definition we are having for the Dbms, the same definition I am keeping for the Rdbms also, guys. Now try to understand, guys. What is the difference between these two? What is the difference between Dbms and what is the difference between the Rdbms softwares? We know that These two softwares, Dbms and Rdbms, are used to store the data only. It is used to store the data only, guys. Huge volumes of data. But I'm keeping both the definitions are same. Both the Dbms and Rdbms definitions are same. But what is the difference between these two? What is the difference between Dbms and Rdbms means? Try to understand, guys. In Dbms softwares, if you want to create the relationship between the two tables, suppose, try to understand, guys. I'm having one table called employee table. I'm having one table called employee table, guys. And then second table I'm having here is departments table. Try to understand, guys. The first table I'm having here is EMP table. The second table I'm having here is DEPT table. DEPT table. In the employees table, suppose think that I'm having the columns like employee number, employee name, and then what is the salary of the employee, and then under which department the employee is working. Under which department the employee is working. I'm having some columns like this, guys. Employee number, employee name, what is the salary of the employee, and then what is the department number, under which department the employee is working. These are the columns I'm having in this EMP table, guys. Now in this DEPT table, I'm having two columns. One is department number and second one is department name, guys. One is department number, second one is department name. Guys. Now my requirement here is I want to establish the relationship between the two tables, guys, based on the common column. Try to understand. I want to establish the relationship between the two tables, between the EMP table and the DEPT table. I want to create the relationship, guys. I want to create the relationship. If you want to create the relationship between the two tables, one table employee table, second one is DEPT table, means it is not possible to establish the relationships, guys. Try to understand. In Dbms softwares, it is not possible to create the relationships between the two tables, guys. This is the major difference between the Dbms and Rdbms. What is the problem you are having in Dbms, guys? In Dbms softwares, if you want to establish the relationship between the two tables like this, it is not possible to establish the relationship between the two tables, guys. Let me keep like this here. In Dbms softwares, it is not possible to create the relationships between the two tables, guys. If you want to create the relationship between the two tables in Dbms softwares, it is not possible. In Dbms softwares, it is not possible to create the relationship between the two tables, guys. Now, to overcome this problem, to establish the relationship between the tables, what is the softwares nowadays the business organizers are using? Means nowadays the business organizers are using the Rdbms softwares, guys. In Rdbms softwares, the name it is telling, guys. What is the definition for this? Relational database. What is meant by relational, guys? We can maintain the relationships between the two tables. In Rdbms, guys. In Rdbms, we can maintain the relationship between the tables like this. One is EMP table, second one is DEPT table, guys. Like this, we can maintain the relationships between the tables. So to overcome this problem in the Dbms, we are going for them. Nowadays, all the business organizers are using Rdbms softwares to store their data, guys. To store their data in the tables, we are using them Rdbms softwares. In Rdbms, we can create the relationship between the tables. Guys. Let me keep like this. In Rdbms softwares, it is possible to create the relationship between the two tables. In Rdbms softwares, it is possible to create the relationship between the two tables, guys. And then try to understand, guys. These are the two softwares we are having. What is the main difference between them? Dbms and Rdbms, guys. In Dbms, it is not possible to create the relationship between the two tables. So to overcome this problem, to maintain the relationship between the tables, nowadays we are using the Rdbms softwares. Rdbms is nothing but relational database management systems. In Rdbms softwares, it is possible to create the relationship between the two tables, guys. Now we know that what are the different types of database softwares we are having. These are the two different types of database softwares we are having. And then we know that what is meant by Dbms and what is meant by Rdbms, guys. What is the purpose of this Dbms and Rdbms, guys? These are used to store the data. Guys. These are used to store the data. After storing the data, try to understand, guys. These are the softwares which is used to store the data. After storing the data, suppose if you want to create a table, and then after if you want to store some data in this table, like 10 records in this table, we need to have another software, guys. These are only just like memories, guys. Dbms and Rdbms softwares are just like memory allocations. Now if you want to insert the data, if you want to keep the data like this, 10 records in this table, means we need to have another one more software. What is the software we need to have here is, let me keep like this, guys. What is the software nowadays we are using to store the data in the databases? Means what is the software we are using, guys? SQL, guys. SQL is a software which is used to insert the data, update the data, and delete the data in the tables. Guys. Now let me keep the definition of SQL, guys. What the SQL stands for, guys? What the SQL stands for means SQL is a structured query language. SQL stands for structured query language, guys. Let me keep like this. SQL is a structured query language. SQL is a structured query language, guys. S stands for structured, Q stands for query, and then L stands for language. Guys. Structured query language. Now let me keep the definition for this, guys. What is the definition of the SQL? What is the definition of the SQL means? What is the definition for this, guys? SQL is a structured query language. SQL is a structured query language. SQL is a structured query language which is specially designed to communicate with the databases. Guys. Try to understand what is the SQL stands for, guys. SQL stands for structured query language. Now what is the definition of this? SQL is a structured query language which is specially designed to communicate with the databases. Which is specially designed to communicate with the databases, guys. What are the databases? These two are the database software systems. If you want to interact with this database, Dbms and Rdbms means we need to have what we need to have, guys? We need to have here one software. What is the software means? SQL, guys. What is the software means? SQL, guys. Now we know that what is meant by SQL. What is meant by SQL, guys? And then after, let me give one of the examples here, guys. Some of the examples for Rdbms. We are having different Rdbms softwares nowadays in the real world, guys. The first one here is Ms SQL Server. Let me keep like this. Ms SQL Server. The first one is Ms SQL Server. Second one is Oracle. Third one is MySQL. And then fifth one is IBM DB2. And then next one is PostgreSQL. PostgreSQL. Like this, we are having different types of Rdbms softwares, guys. Like this, we are having different types of Rdbms softwares. One is Ms SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, DB2, PostgreSQL, guys. These are the different types of softwares we are having. All these are Rdbms softwares, guys. All these are Rdbms softwares. Now, in today's session, on what we are going to discuss, guys? We are going to discuss on the Ms SQL Server. We are going to discuss on the Ms SQL Server, guys. First, we know that what is meant by SQL. What is meant by SQL? We know that SQL is the definition. This is the definition for the SQL, guys. And then in which scenarios exactly we are going to make use of the SQL, guys? In which scenarios we are going to make use of the SQL means I'll give one example, guys. I will give one real-time example. Let me keep like this, guys. SQL software, SQL software, SQL software will acts as a backend tool, will acts as a backend tool which is used to develop them, which is used to develop the backend applications and to store the data in the form of tables, guys, and to store the data in the form of tables, guys, in the form of tables. This is one of the example where we are going to make use of, guys. What is the I'm telling here? SQL software will act as a backend tool which is used to develop the backend applications and to store the data in the form of tables, guys. Let me give one example here. How the SQL is going to be acted as a backend tool. Guys. Let me give one example here. Suppose, try to understand, guys. If you want to create one Gmail account, we'll go for any web browser, guys, like Google, like Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or Opera Mini, Firefox. Like this, we'll go for different types of web browsers, guys. After going to the web browsers, when we are creating the Gmail accounts, it will ask some details, guys. What is your first name? What is your middle name? And then what is your last name? And then after, mobile number, related mobile number, on which mobile number you want to create the Gmail account. And then it will ask one reference email ID, guys. Email ID. You need to pass your reference email ID, guys, your friend's email ID or your parents' email ID. It will ask some for reference. It will ask one email ID, and then it will ask some personal details, guys. For security purpose, it will ask some personal details like your 10th standard marks list, like 10th class hall ticket number, or which college you studied. Like this, it will ask some personal details. What is the use of this personal details? Means for security purpose, it will ask some personal details, guys. And then after passing all this information, first name, middle name, last name, mobile number, reference email ID, and then some personal details. In the bottom, you are having one button, guys. Submit or OK. Button, guys. When we click on this button, you are going to create one Gmail account. You are going to create one new Gmail account, guys. See here, after clicking this OK button, you are able to create one Gmail account, guys. You will create one new Gmail account. Try to understand, after clicking this OK button, where this data is going to be stored, guys. You are passing some data here, your first name, middle name, last name. Where this data is going to be stored. Try to understand, guys. When we click on this OK button, this data is going to be stored in the backend. There are some databases, guys. In the backend, there are some databases. In these databases, the data is going to be stored. In the backend, this data is going to be stored in the databases. Now we are discussing about one of the databases, SQL, guys. Sometimes one of the database is SQL. In the database, in the backend, the data is going to be stored here, guys. Like this is one of the example where the SQL will act as a backend tool. And try to understand, guys, after one year, if you forget your Gmail password, guys, if you want to create your new password, it will ask some personal details. You passed here some security personal details, right? It will ask your college name. What is your college name? If you pass the correct college name here, correctly, it will allow us to create the new password, guys. When we are passing your security details here, from where it is getting the data means it is getting data from the databases in the backend, guys. Now, if the data you are passing is matching means it will allows us to create the new passwords. It will allows us to create the new passwords, guys. This is one of the example where the SQL will act as a backend tool, where the SQL will act as a backend tool, guys. Now we know that what is meant by SQL. What is meant by SQL? Now who developed the SQL Server, guys? Initially, who developed the SQL? Initially, who developed the SQL means, let me keep like this, guys. Initially, SQL was developed by which company means SQL was developed by the IBM company, guys. Initially, first who developed the SQL means SQL was developed by the IBM company. In which year they are developed means in the year 1972, guys. In the year 1972. In the year 1972, IBM company developed a software called SQL. Developed a software called SQL, guys. Now we know that what is meant by SQL, and then in which scenarios we are going to make use of the SQL, and then who developed the SQL in the initial days. In the initial days, IBM company developed the SQL, guys. And then in today's session, we are going to discuss this MS SQL Server, guys. In today's session, we are going to discuss this MS SQL Server. Now, what is meant by this MS SQL Server, guys? Try to understand what is meant by the MS SQL Server. What is the definition of this MS SQL Server means? Try to understand, guys. The same definition, guys. Whatever the definition we are having for the SQL, basic SQL, whatever the definition we are having for the basic SQL developed by the IBM company in the year 1972, the same definition for the MS SQL Server also, guys. For the MS SQL Server also, MS SQL Server also, SQL Server is a structured query language which is specially designed to communicate with the databases. And this is the example, guys. This is the example where the SQL will act as a backend tool. Guys. Now try to understand. I am telling that both the SQL and MS SQL Server are same, but we know that SQL was developed by the IBM company in the year 1972. Now who developed this MS SQL, guys? Who developed the MS SQL Server means? Let me keep like this, guys. MS SQL Server was developed by the MS SQL Server was developed by MS SQL Server was developed by the which company, guys? Microsoft company. MS SQL Server was developed by the Microsoft company. In which year it is developed means in the year 1989, guys. In the year 1989. Based on the SQL, by taking this SQL as a reference, developed by the IBM company, Microsoft developed another software called MS SQL Server, guys. Microsoft developed another software called MS SQL. By taking this SQL as a reference, Microsoft developed another software called MS SQL Server. MS SQL Server, guys. Now try to understand. I am keeping the same definition for the SQL and for the MS SQL Server also. Both the definitions are same, guys. Nothing will be changes. But what is the difference between these two softwares? What is the difference between the SQL and what is the difference between the MS SQL Server means? SQL developed by the IBM company initially, which software it is? It is a Dbms software or whether it is an Rdbms software means initially IBM company developed the SQL at that time it is an Dbms product, guys. It is a Dbms product. Initially, when the IBM company developed the SQL Server, in the year 1972, it is a Dbms product, guys. It is a Dbms product. We know that what is the problem we are having in the Dbms, guys? What is the problem? It is not possible to create the relationship between the two tables. If you want to establish the relationship between the two tables, it is not possible. So to overcome this problem, nowadays the business organizers are using the Rdbms software. Now we know that SQL comes under the Dbms product. Now MS SQL Server will comes under the Rdbms software, guys. That means in MS SQL Server, we can create the relationship between the tables. In MS SQL Server, we can create the relationship between the tables guys. We can create the relationships like this. This is the main difference between the SQL developer by the IBM company, SQL developer by the IBM company, and MS SQL Server developer by the Microsoft. Keep in mind guys, both SQL and MS SQL Server are not same. SQL is different, MS SQL Server is different. SQL is a Dbms product, whereas MS SQL Server is an Rdbms product. MS SQL Server is an Rdbms product guys. Now we know that what is the difference between the SQL and MS SQL Server. Now try to keep one more point here guys. Try to keep me one more point here. This MS SQL Server is not a single software guys. It is not a single software. Let me keep like this. MS SQL Server, it is a combination of ANSI SQL. It is a combination of ANSI SQL plus T-SQL guys, plus T-SQL. ANSI SQL is a combination of MS SQL Server is a combination of ANSI SQL and T-SQL. Here ANSI is nothing but basic SQL guys. Basic SQL plus T-SQL. Now what is meant by this ANSI guys? What is meant by this ANSI means? ANSI stands for American National Standard Institutes. American National Standard Institutes guys. Let me keep here. American National Standard Institutes. Now we know that MS SQL Server is a combination of ANSI SQL and T-SQL guys. ANSI and T-SQL. Now try to understand guys. Is this MS SQL Server is a programming language or not? Means MS SQL Server is not a programming language guys. Let me keep like this. MS SQL Server is a is not a programming language. Is not a programming language guys. It is not a programming language. If you want to learn the MS SQL Server, if you need to have any one of the programming languages, means no need to have any one of the programming language guys. To learn the SQL Server, you no need to have the C language, you no need to have the basic knowledge in the C, no need to have the knowledge on the C++, no need to have the knowledge on the Java, no need to have the knowledge on the Python like this case. No need to have the knowledge on the Python, and no need to have the knowledge on the .NET also. No need to have the knowledge on the .NET. That means to learn the MS SQL Server, we don't need to have any one of these programming languages guys. We don't need to have any one of this programming language. That is why I am keeping here MS SQL Server is not a programming language. It is not a programming language. Now which language the SQL will allow? Which language the MS SQL Server will allow means MS SQL Server allows the query language case. MS SQL Server will allows the query language case. Will allows the query language. Now what is meant by this query guys? What is meant by this query? See here the definition. What the SQL stands for guys? SQL is a structured query language. In the definition it is telling that SQL is a structured query language guys. That is the thing I am keeping here. MS SQL Server will allows the query language. Now what is meant by this query guys? What is meant by this query language means, let me keep like this. What is meant by this query means, querying is nothing but retrieving the data from the tables guys. Retrieving the data from the tables. Query is nothing but retrieving the data from the tables. Retrieving the data from the tables guys. Retrieving the data from the tables is known as query. Is known as querying guys. Retrieving the data from the tables is known as querying. Try to understand guys. Suppose I'm having one table called EMP table. In this table I'm having suppose 10 records. If I want to see the data in this table, 10 records, if I want to see the data in this table, EMP table means directly it is not possible guys. We need to write some simple queries. By writing the queries, by using this query language, we can see the data guys. We can see the data in the EMP table. That's the thing I am keeping here. Retrieving is nothing but getting, guys. Retrieving is nothing but, let me keep here one more point also. Retrieving is nothing but getting the data. Getting the data, guys. Getting the data from retrieving or getting the data from the tables is known as query. Is known as querying, guys. And then let me keep here one more point, guys. Let me keep here one more point. MS SQL Server is both GUI and CUI software, guys. MS SQL Server is both GUI and CUI software, and both GUI and CUI software, both GUI and CUI software, guys. Now, what is meant by this GUI and CUI, guys? What is meant by this GUI and CUI means GUI stands for graphical user interface. GUI stands for graphical user interface. Then CUI stands for character user interface. Character user interface, guys. Let me keep like this. GUI is nothing but a graphical user interface. Graphical user interface. Graphical user interface. But whereas coming to CUI, CUI is nothing but character user interface, guys. Character user interface. Character user interface. GUI means, you know that what is meant by GUI, guys. GUI is nothing but without code, guys. Without any code. Without code, guys. Without code, if you want to see the data in the tables, we can see the data, guys. If you're having some 10 records in this table, without writing any query, if you want to see the data in this table means we can see the data, guys. How we can see the data? By writing any query, we'll understand, guys. I will show you how to get the data from the tables without writing any queries. And then see here, guys, CUI is nothing but character user interface. CUI is nothing but by writing some queries, guys, with code. By writing some queries with the help of this query language, by writing some queries, we can get the data from the tables. Guys. Fine. I'm telling that here MS SQL Server will allows the query language. I will show you one example, guys. I will show you one example how to write the simple queries. By writing some simple queries, how to see the data in the tables. Data in the tables, guys. I will show you one table here. Let me open the SQL Server, guys. You will understand, guys, how to open the SQL Server, how to install the SQL Server. I will explain you in the next class. But now try to understand how to write the queries. By writing simple queries, how to see the data in the tables. I will explain you now, guys. Let it open. Fine, guys. I will explain this, what is meant by this window, guys. This is the welcome window. When we open the SQL Server, I will explain you this window in the next class. For now, try to understand, guys. Let me click on connect. Now expand. Let me go to the tables. Let me go to the databases first. I'm having one database called sample database. You'll understand all this, case. For your demonstration purpose, how the queries we are going to write, I will show you one example. Let me expand these databases. Let me expand the tables. See here, guys, we are having one table here. What is the table we are having here? EMP table. Now in this table, we are having some data. Guys. If I want to see the data in this table, EMP table, how to write the queries? How to write the simple queries? By writing the queries, how can we see the data in the tables, or how can we retrieve the data from the tables? You'll understand now. Let me show you one simple example, guys. By writing simple syntaxes, we can see the data in the tables. Let me connect to the database. See here, guys, my requirement here is I want to see the data in the table. Guys. How to write the syntax to see the data in the tables? Let me show you, guys. Simple syntax. Select star from table name, guys. Employee table. Select star from table name. By writing the simple syntax like this, we can see the data in this table, guys. How many records we're having in this table? I want to see, guys. Now let me select the syntax. Click on execute. See here, guys. How many records we're having in this table? Now we are writing one query, guys. This is called as query. By writing like this simple queries, we can see the data in the table. This is the data we are having in this EMP table, guys. This is the data we are having in the EMP table. How many records we are having? Totally we are having 11 records, guys. Totally we are having 11 records in the EMP table. Like this, by writing the simple syntaxes, we can see the data in the tables. We can see the data in the tables, guys. Now try to understand, guys, the data in this table. Now under the department number column, how many departments we are having, guys? We are having 10th department, 20th department, and 30th department. We are having 3 departments, guys. Department number is equal to 10, department number is equal to 20, department number is equal to 30. We are having 3 departments here. We are having 3 departments. Now try to understand, guys. I want to select only the 10th department details. I want to select only the 10th department details, guys. How many employees are working in the 10th department, guys? These are the employees who are working in the 10th department. Now I don't want to get all the records in the table. I don't want to get the total 11 records. I want to get only the 10th department employee details, guys. I want to get only the 10th department number employee details. How many employees working in the 10th department means 4 employees are working. I want to get this 4 employee details only, guys. How to get this means by writing some simple logics, guys. See here, the same syntax, same query, just I am keeping where condition, where department number is equal to 10. The department number is equal to 10, guys. Now when I run this syntax, see here, now we are getting only the 10th department number details. Now we are getting only the 10th department number. See here, guys, we are getting only the 10th department number details. Suppose if you want to get the 20th department, if you want to get the 20, let me pass here 20, guys. If you pass here 20, we will get the 20th department. See here, now we are getting only the 20th department number employees details. Suppose if you want to get the 30th department, just pass 30 here. In place of 20, pass 30, guys. Select the syntax, click on execute. See here, now we are getting only the 30th department number employees details. Like this, by writing some simple syntaxes, by writing some simple queries, this is known as query language, guys. This is known as query language. By writing these simple queries, we can get the data from the tables. We can get the data from this table, guys. This is the data we are having in this table. Like this, by writing some simple syntaxes, like this, if you want to build the logics, we can build the logics on the table, and then we can retrieve the data, guys. We can see the data, what type of data we are having in the EMP table. This is known as query, guys. This is known as query language. Whatever the syntax we are writing here, this language, this syntax is called as query language, guys. Query language. This is the how the data will looks like, guys. This is how the data. Let me select the complete data, guys. Let me select the complete data. This is the complete data we are having. This is the complete data we are having in this EMP table. This is the complete data we are having in the EMP table, guys. Like this, by writing some simple syntaxes, we can get the data from the tables. We can get the data from the tables, guys. Now let me go here. I said that MS SQL Server is a both GUI and CUI software, guys. Now what are the advantages we are having? What are the advantages? What are the advantages we are having in the MS SQL Server means? What is the first advantage, guys? What is the first advantage? MS SQL Server is an Rdbms product. MS SQL Server is an Rdbms product. In Rdbms, we can create the relationships between the two tables, guys. The first advantage, what is the first advantage means? We can create the relationships between the tables. It is possible to create the relationships between the two tables, guys. Second one is, what is the second advantage, guys? It is a both GUI and CUI software. SQL Server is both GUI and CUI software, guys. With the help of the GUI options here, see here, we are having some of the GUI options, guys. All these are GUI options. On the top also we are having some GUI options. With the help of these GUI options, we can perform some of the operations, guys. We can perform the operations by writing this code. By writing this, without writing this code also, with the help of this GUI options, we can perform the operations. Guys. And then third one, what is the third advantage we are having here is this MS SQL Server is a more secured, guys. Let me keep like this. It is more secured. It is more secured. And then fourth one, what is the fourth advantage, guys? The fourth advantage we are having here is it is less cost, guys. It is less cost. And then fifth advantage we are having here is it handles the huge volumes of data. It can handles the huge volumes of data, like millions of records, guys. If you want to store the millions of records, this MS SQL Server will support. MS SQL Server will support, guys. And then sixth advantage. What is the sixth advantage we are having here is it is not a programming language, guys. I said that it is not a programming language. To learn the SQL Server, no need to have any one of the programming language, guys. No need to have any one of the programming language. MS SQL Server is not a programming language. And then seventh one, guys, what is the seventh advantage we are having here is MS SQL Server. This MS SQL Server will support web technologies, guys. It supports web technologies like, let me keep like this. It supports web technologies. It supports web technologies like, let me keep some of the web technologies, guys. It supports for .NET. It will act as a, it will support .NET. It will support for the XML. It supports for the HTML. And also it supports for Java. Like this, it will support some of the web technologies, guys. All these are web technologies, guys. With the help of this softwares, we can build the websites. That means SQL Server will support the web technologies like .NET, XML, HTML, and Java, etc. guys. And then final advantage. What is the eighth advantage we are having here is SQL Server will act as a source, guys. Let me keep like this. It will act as a source. It will act as a source for analysis. Or for reporting purpose. It will act as a source for analysis, report, or machine learning capabilities. Case. That means it will be acting as a source for analysis. If you want to analyze the data, from where you need to take the data, guys? We need to take the data from the SQL Server. If you want to create the reports, from where we need to take the data? We need to take the data from the SQL Server. If you want to do some of the operations in the machine learning, also we are going to use the MS SQL Server, guys. In the machine learning also, we are going to use the MS SQL Server. Like this, these are some of the advantages we are having, guys. These are some of the advantages we are having in the MS SQL Server. And the next one here, guys. Next one, try to understand. I said that MS SQL Server is a combination of ANSI SQL and T-SQL. Now, what is meant by this T-SQL, guys? Try to understand what is meant by this T-SQL. What is meant by the T-SQL, guys? What is meant by T-SQL, guys? Anybody? What is meant by T-SQL? What is meant by T-SQL, guys? T-SQL stands for Transact Structured Query Language. Transact Structured Query Language, guys. Transact SQL. We know that what the SQL stands for. Structured Query Language. T stands for Transact, guys. Transact Structured Query Language. Now, who developed this T-SQL, guys? Who developed the T-SQL means T-SQL is developed by which company? T-SQL is also developed by the Microsoft company, guys. T-SQL is also developed by the Microsoft company. In which year it is developed means in the same year, guys. In the same year, in which year the SQL Server was developed? In the same year, the T-SQL is also developed, guys. In the same year, 1989. Now, what type of product it is, guys? Now we know that, guys. Try to understand. Here, SQL is developed by the IBM company. It is a Dbms product. MS SQL Server is an Rdbms product. It is an Rdbms product. Now, what this product it is? T-SQL will comes under the Dbms or Rdbms. T-SQL will comes under Dbms or Rdbms software. Which software it is, guys? T-SQL will comes under Dbms software or Rdbms software means T-SQL will comes under the OO or Dbms, guys. T-SQL is a Rdbms software, Rdbms product, Rdbms product. Now, what is meant by this O, guys? What is meant by this O means object oriented. Object oriented, guys. Let me keep like this. What is meant by this O Rdbms means O stands for object oriented. Object oriented relational database management system. Object oriented relational database management system. Now, what is meant by this object oriented, guys? What is meant by this object oriented means? Try to understand, guys. In .NET, we're having the OOPS concepts, guys. In .NET, we're having the OOPS concepts. In the same way, in Java also, we're having the OOPS concepts, guys. We're having the OOPS concepts. Now, what is meant by this OOPS, guys? What is meant by this OOPS in the .NET or in the Java? OOPS is nothing but object oriented, guys. OOPS is nothing but object oriented. OOPS is nothing but object oriented programming language, guys. Object oriented programming language. What is this object oriented means? These are the advanced concepts, guys. These are the advanced concepts. These are the advanced. The extension of .NET, topics is called as OOPS concepts. In the same way, in the Java also we are having the OOPS concepts. OOPS is nothing but advanced concepts, guys. Advanced concepts. In the same way, in MS SQL Server also, we are having the advanced concepts or OOPS concept. That advanced concepts will call it as T-SQL. Advanced concepts or object oriented relational databases is known as T-SQL, guys. It is known as T-SQL. Try to understand. Suppose I'm having some data in the table, guys. Suppose this is the EMP table. Suppose think that this is the EMP table. I'm having some 1 million records in this table, guys. I'm having 1 million records in this table. Now, based on this 1 million data, client asked us one requirement, guys. Client asked us one requirement. We are having basic SQL and T-SQL. Basic SQL and T-SQL, guys. Sometimes, try to understand whatever the client is expecting from us, sometimes we can achieve the requirements with the help of basic SQL, guys. Sometimes we can achieve the client requirements, with the help of the basic SQL, But sometimes, guys, it is not possible to achieve the client requirements. With the help of basic SQL, Now, in this case, to achieve the client requirements, we are using the T-SQL. We are going to use the T-SQL, guys. What is the purpose of using the T-SQL? Sometimes basic SQL doesn't support to achieve the client requirements. So to achieve the client requirements, we are going to use the T-SQL. What is the use of T-SQL, guys? T-SQL is used to build some logics to achieve the client requirements. Based on the data we are having, based on the 1 million records in this table, I want to build some logics, and then after building the logics, I want to achieve the client requirement. Guys. Like this, to achieve the client requirements, we are going to use the T-SQL in some cases. In some of the cases, to achieve the client requirements, we are going to use the T-SQL, guys. What is the purpose of T-SQL means? In the T-SQL, we are going to build some logics. And then when we are building the logics, we are going to use some control statements, guys. If you are using some control statements like if condition, something like if, and then if else, and then case statement, while loop. These are the only 4 control statements, guys. One is if, second one is if else, third one is case, and then fourth one is while loop. With the help of these 4 control statements only, we can completely build the logics in the T-SQL, guys. If we are using the 4 control statements, if else, case, and then while loop means, we'll call that type of control statements, or whenever if you are using the control statements in the SQL means, that type of SQL will call it as programming language, guys. Now try to understand. T-SQL is a programming language, guys. T-SQL is a programming language. T-SQL is a programming language, guys. Try to understand. I am telling that T-SQL is a programming language. Here, maybe we need to learn any one of the C, C++, Java, or Python like this. Here also no need to have any one of this language, guys. Here also, in the T-SQL also no need to have any one of the language. In this T-SQL also, we are going to write the queries only, guys. We are going to use the query language only. We are going to use the query language. But when we are writing the queries, we are making use of the control statements. What are the control statements we are having, guys? One is if, second one is if else, second one is if else, third one is case statement, case, and then fourth one is while loop. Fourth one is while loop, guys. These are the only 4 control statements. These are the only 4 control statements in the complete T-SQL we are going to use, guys. In the complete T-SQL, we are going to use these 4 control statements only. With the help of these 4 control statements, we can completely build the logics on the data, guys. We can completely build the logics on the data. Don't think that here we need to write some any queries, any programming language, guys. Here also we are going to write the queries only. But when we are writing the queries, we are going to use these 4 control statements. We are going to use this 4 control statements, guys. That means we come to know that T-SQL is a programming language and it is an object-oriented relational database management system. Object-oriented relational database management system. What is the purpose of this T-SQL, guys? It is used to build the logics. It is used to build the logics to achieve the client requirements. It is used to build the logics to achieve the or to get the client requirements. To get the client requirements, guys. To get the client requirements, we are going to build some logics. We are going to build some logics on the data, guys. We are going to build some logics to get the client requirements. Just now I said that suppose we are having 1 million records in the table. If the client is expecting 1 record, if this requirement is not available with the basic SQL, if this requirement is not achieved with the help of basic SQL, now we are going to use the T-SQL. What is the use of T-SQL? T-SQL is used to build some logics. T-SQL is used to build the logics to get the client requirements. To achieve the client requirements, we are going to build the logics. When we are going to build the logics, how many control statements we are using, guys? We are going to use the 4 control statements. In the complete T-SQL, we are going to make use of only 4 control statements, guys. 4 control statements. And then we come to know that, guys, T-SQL is an OO or Dbms product. OO means object oriented relational database. Object oriented means advanced concepts. What is the use of this advanced concepts? Means to achieve the client requirements. Sometimes basic SQL doesn't support. So to achieve the client requirements, we are using the TSQL. What is the use of this T-SQL? Means it is used to build the logics with the help of the 4 control statements. With the help of this 4 control statements, guys. This is the main purpose of where we are going to use the T-SQL, guys. Where we are going to use the T-SQL in the real world. Fine, guys. Let me stop here today. Let me conclude this session, guys. Let me stop the recording first.